Welcome back, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. This is Real Big Ten Football Talk +1 with Chris. I am Chris. It is still the week 12 of the 2018 college football season, and this is the second episode of the week. As I said in the first one, we're kind of desperate for pivotal matchups in the Big Ten this week. Week 12 usually is kind of a tweener, in-between type of week. If you look at the SEC, the same deal. I mean, you got Alabama playing Citadel. You got a lot of SEC teams playing FCS opponents, so Week 12 is kind of the sort of like the calm before the storm, so to speak. Because, of course, next week has got a list of great games within the Big Ten in addition to across the country. But this week, we are trying to find games to talk about. And in this particular matchup, I do think it may be more interesting than a lot of people think. That is none other than the Michigan State Spartans sitting at 6-4, 4-3 in Big Ten play, going to Lincoln, Nebraska to play the unranked Cornhuskers of Nebraska at 3-7, 2-5 in Big Ten play. Why are you talking about this game, Chris? Isn't it obvious Michigan State's going to win? It is not obvious Michigan State's going to win. That's why I'm doing this game this week, is what I would say to those naysayers. Nebraska has shown me a little bit of something in recent weeks. They've shown me that I do believe they really do want to play for their coach now. Their problem is, we'll talk about in a little bit, penalties and turnovers and defense. But we'll get to that in a minute. First of all, look at who these two teams have played before we go any further into the data. Michigan State, we've talked about them a number of times on the show, so I'm not going to delve too much in detail on their schedule. They beat Utah State in the first week, 38-31, and they went on to lose to Arizona State 16-13, a very well-played game for both teams, but neither team could get any offense together, and it showed in the score. They went to Bloomington, Indiana the next week, 35-21. That was a win. They did play Central Michigan the week after, and they weren't incredibly... I can't think. They weren't incredibly impressive in that game with Central Michigan, but they did win 31-20. Then they followed up with a questionable loss to Northwestern, 29-19. Not a bad loss, though, considering Northwestern is going to be the Big Ten West representative in the Big Ten championship game, but you did still go up 29 points to a team that doesn't have a great offense. Then you went on and beat Penn State the week after that in Happy Valley, 21-17. You lost 21-7 to a very talented Michigan team, but I think that was a spark that you needed, and that did help you, I believe, to win the next two games against Purdue 23-13 and at Maryland 24-3. You did lose 26-6 to Ohio State last week, but your defense did play well. It's just you just don't have a good enough offense, and that's why you lost. Anybody who watched that game can attest to that. Couldn't complete a pass, couldn't convert on third down, couldn't run to save your lives, and it showed in the scoreboard. But we will look at the Maryland game as our marquee win for Michigan State this episode. For Nebraska, we haven't looked at them. I don't think I've done a game on them at all this year, so we'll look at them a little bit more in depth. That Akron game being canceled, I think, did hurt them, and that's why I even listed it, because a team like Nebraska, being so new, so fresh, so young, with a new head coach, they really needed all the games they could play, and it sucked they couldn't play that game, to be honest. So their first game this year was against Colorado, and they lost 33-28. A lot of people, including myself, thought, well, okay, Colorado's a pretty good team, whatever. Nebraska will be all right. It was a tough loss. And they went on and lost to Troy the next week. Now, everybody and their mother was like, oh my God, what's wrong with Nebraska? Troy's gone to be an 8-2 team, so that wasn't really a horrible loss, and they barely lost. Now, the Michigan game was a bad loss, 56-10. Don't care if they're playing Michigan in the Big House, in Lincoln, or on the Moon. 56-10, that is a bad, bad loss to anybody. I don't care who you are. They lost to Purdue the next week, 42-28, then lost to Wisconsin again, a ranked team at number 16, 41-24. That was their worst stretch, I think, of the year. After that, they started turning around more. They almost beat Northwestern in Evanston, 34-31. They did come back and beat Minnesota the week after that for their first win of the year, a resounding 53-28 victory. Defeated Bethune-Cookman 45-9, an FCS team, but for a team like Nebraska, who was at one point 0-6, I'll give them a green for any win they had so far this year. Did lose a tough one to Ohio State then the week after that, 36-31, but they showed me that they can fight. They've got fight, and that's why I'm picking them this week. Or I'm not picking them right now, but I'm just saying that's why I decided to pick this game to do, because this Nebraska team does have a lot of fight. And they did beat Illinois 54-35 last weekend, and that is the game we'll talk about today for Nebraska. For Michigan State, that win against Maryland is still a good win in my book. But Michigan State did struggle on offense, as they have most of the year. They did get 19 first downs, 35.7% third down efficiency, 5 of 14. Not great, not horrible considering their offensive woes anyway. They did get 269 yards on the ground. Very impressive, but only 87 yards through the air. And that's been more or less, if you can call any part of Michigan State's offense bread and butter. They've gotten more yards in the passing game, so it is cause for concern for me that they only had 87 yards passing and 11 of 22. 0 passing touchdowns and 1 pick thrown. Again, cause for concern. Total yards, 356 yards they acquired. Only 4 penalties, though, for 33 yards. Quite impressive. But did turn the ball over twice to an inferior opponent in Maryland. Time of possession, 36-56. Quite impressive for Michigan State's offense. They didn't do a whole lot with the ball statistically, but they did hold on to the ball for a long time, and that meant Maryland's offense was on the sideline a long time. For Maryland, Michigan State only gave up 9 first downs, 20% third down efficiency. 3 of 15 those terrapins were on third down. 26 rushing yards, 74 passing yards, for a total of 100 yards given up for Michigan State. That's quite dominant. 8 of 24 passing, Wisconsin Hill. 0 passing touchdowns and 0 interceptions thrown. Maryland only committed 3 penalties for 25 yards, and Michigan State did force 2 turnovers. And they only held Maryland to 23 minutes and 4 seconds of offensive possession. Quite a resounding, impressive, dominant win for the Michigan State Spartans. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, it's late. Nebraska's recent win, I say recent win because I can't say this is a marquee win because Illinois is not a high-profile marquee opponent, but a win is a win, especially for Nebraska, and I want to list it here because it is their most recent win. But Nebraska did give up a lot of first downs to Illinois before they beat them. 25 first downs given up, 53.8% third down efficiency allowed. 7 of 13 Illinois was on third down. 383 rushing yards. That's not going to win many games. But only 126 yards through the air given up. 11 of 25 passing for Illinois. Again, excellent job by Nebraska's defense for that. And Illinois had 0 passing touchdowns, 2 interceptions thrown. Quite impressive for Nebraska. But Nebraska did give up 509 yards of offense. Again, alarming stat for me. Illinois did commit 7 penalties for 66 yards. That might have helped to cause them not to score as many points as they did. And also, Nebraska forced 5 turnovers. Quite impressive, but Illinois did hold onto the ball longer at 30 minutes and 11 seconds. Again, cause for concern in my book. What did Nebraska do on offense? They did get 22 first downs, but only 33.3% on third down efficiency, 4 of 12. Not going to help you against a very stingy Michigan State defense. But Nebraska did get 316 yards on the ground, 290 through the air, 24 of 34 passing collectively, 3 passing touchdowns to 1 interception thrown. Quite impressive, but the 1 interception thrown does make me raise my eyebrow a little bit, considering who they played. But a 606 total offensive yards. You're going to win most games when you have that much offense, but you did commit 7 penalties yourselves for 72 yards. Nebraska got to clean that up against a good Michigan State team that doesn't commit penalties as often. And you did commit 2 turnovers. And you only held onto the ball for 29 minutes and 49 seconds. But it's more or less equal, so I can't really say yellow or green. But you want to hold onto the ball longer than that if you're Nebraska, especially against Michigan State. That does do well in holding onto the ball. Regardless of whether they convert on third down or not, they do hold onto the ball for a long time. Michigan State and Nebraska, the last 5, I didn't mean to say 4, I meant to say the last 5 meetings. 2015, the last time they played, Nebraska did beat or ranked number 7 Michigan State team 39-38. 2014, number 19, Nebraska did lose to Michigan State 27-22 in East Lansing. 2013, number 16, Michigan State did dominate Nebraska 41-28. And then in 2012, Nebraska did beat Michigan State, 20th ranked in the country at the time, in East Lansing. Nebraska did win 28-24. In 2011, Nebraska did smash Michigan State 24-3 in Lincoln. So as you can see, this series has been more or less equal in the last 5 meetings, with Michigan State holding the slight edge. If you look at the team offensive efficiency splits, Michigan State does hold onto the ball for quite a bit longer than Nebraska at 32 minutes versus 28 minutes. But Michigan State does struggle on offense, like I've talked about before. 351.7 yards per game. That's 110th nationally. 30.1% third down efficiency. Again, quite horrible at 128th nationally. Michigan State doesn't do a great job holding onto the ball, but it is a +1, so I can't say it's red. But it is 58th nationally. For Nebraska, total offense, quite impressive at 482.6 yards per game. That is 13th nationally. So looking at that stat, you might ask yourself, so why is Nebraska 3-7? We'll see why I think they're 3-7 a little bit later in the video. But third down efficiency, you can look at that right there. They're only converting on 37.8% of the time on third down. That is 86th nationally. Also, the turnover margin, big cause for concern if you're a Nebraska fan, at -1. That is 74th nationally. Anytime you're below 0, that's cause for concern. That usually means you haven't won very many games, because you're always turning the ball over. Red zone offensive efficiency. What red zone offensive efficiency if you are Michigan State? You're only getting inside the 23.3 times per game. That is 80th nationally. Red zone touchdown percentage, you're only scoring touchdowns 57.5% of the time you get inside the 20. That is just horrible, Michigan State. You are at 87.9% scoring inside the 20 in general. That's 31st. Not bad, but you need to stop selling for 3s and go for 6s more often if you're Michigan State. Nebraska, all caution yellow ink for your side. Not great, not horrible on any of them. At 3.8 red zone scoring attempts per game, that is 55th nationally. Not bad. Your red zone touchdown percentage is 64.1%. Again, not bad. And red zone scoring percentage for you, 87.2%. 39th. Again, not bad. When Nebraska gets inside the 20, they're not bad, but they're not great. But they're more consistent than Michigan State, statistically speaking. Looking at passing offensive splits. Michigan State, quite horrible in completion percentage department at 53.5%. That is 113th nationally. That number went down quite a bit after last week's fiasco, considering I don't even think the combined effort of the 2 Michigan State quarterbacks were even above 50% in completion percentage. They were quite horrible in accuracy last game. Passing per game and yardage-wise, 333.3 yards per game at 68th nationally. Not great. On the verge of being bad, Michigan State, but I don't want to give you all red on offense, so we'll give you yellow there, but it's definitely cause for concern if I'm a Spartan fan. Sacks allowed per game, 2. That is 58th nationally. Again, cause for concern, but not red. But you don't want to get up that many sacks per game and expect your quarterback to be healthy throughout the year. In fact, Lewerke was struggling with a shoulder injury last week against Ohio State, and it showed. Passes had intercepted, 10 for each team. That is 1 pass intercepted on average per game. That's not great. I don't like it. If I'm a fan of either of those teams, I'm pretty angry, because you should not be averaging 1 interception thrown per game. It should be at least less than 1. You prefer 0, but you don't want it to be at least 1 per game. That's just really bad. For Nebraska, quite impressive in the accuracy department at 65.3% completion percentage. That is 22nd nationally. Passing per game, 256.1 yards per game. That is 42nd nationally. Not great, but not bad. But you are allowing far too many sacks than you should be at 2.2 per game. That is 69th nationally. You might win more games to Cornhuskers if you can give up less sacks. And like I said, you've had 10 passes intercepted this year so far. Team rushing, Michigan State. What rushing statistics? That is 118.4 yards per game. That is 116th nationally. That is horrible. But you do make up for it with rushing defense. Michigan State at 76.5 yards allowed per game. That is first by a resounding margin. Nebraska, you are excellent running the football at 226.5 yards per game. That is 22nd nationally. But you do give up far too many yards on the ground yourselves. At 194, that is 90th nationally. That's the only cause for concern. That's bad, and that's troubling, and that's part of the reason why you've lost 7 games. Nebraska, you've got to do a better job of controlling the line of scrimmage on defense and getting that number down. Passing defense, Michigan State, not great, but not horrible in all aspects, but you give up far too many passes complete at 60.67% completion percentage allowed. That is 72nd nationally. You've got to do a better job of forcing incomplete passes if you're Michigan State. Sacks per game, 2.3. That's 50th nationally. Not bad, but you do need to hit the quarterback more often if you're Michigan State. Interceptions gained 12. That's 18th nationally. Quite impressive for Michigan State. But passing yards allowed, you give up far too many passing yards at 250.8 yards per game. That is 97th nationally, Spartans. That is an alarming stat. That's part of the reason why you lost last week. You're facing a very potent passing offense. The fact that you aren't a very good passing defensive team showed in the amount of yards you gave up through the air. For Nebraska, 51.96% completion percentage allowed. That is 8th nationally. Quite impressive, and that should help you this week against a team that does struggle in accuracy anyway through the air. But you've only hit the quarterback 1.5 times on average per game. That's 108th nationally. Very much cause for concern. Nebraska, you've got to get after these Michigan State quarterbacks. Whoever's under center, you've got to hit these quarterbacks and make them uncomfortable. Only 10 interceptions gained. That's 32nd nationally. Not bad, not great, but you definitely want to up that number against Michigan State and give your offense a shorter field if you're Nebraska. Passing yards given up, 255.4 yards per game. That's 101st nationally. Neither team likes to defend the pass very well. So this game might be a passing slugfest. You never know. Overall defensive efficiency, Michigan State quite efficient on the defensive side of the ball. 18 turnovers gained. That's 28th nationally. Total defense at 327.3 yards. That is 21st nationally. But you're so dominant on the running defense. You're horrible on passing defense, but those two numbers even out at 327.3 yards. That's still impressive, and that is 21st nationally. Third down percentage allowed per game at 32%. That is 14th nationally. Michigan State, that is quite impressive. For Nebraska, nothing impressive about you defensively except you are forcing 18 turnovers you have forced 18 turnovers this year. That is 28th nationally. But total defense, Nebraska, you're at 449.4 yards given up per game. That is 107th nationally. Third down percentage allowed per game, 42%. That is also horrible at 94. That is 94th nationally. Now you are facing a team that struggles to convert on third down, so that might help to reduce that number a bit for next week's game, Nebraska. Offensive scoring efficiency. What offensive scoring efficiency for Michigan State? You're scoring on average 21.7 points per game. That is 105th nationally. First quarter scoring per game, 3.9 points. That is 104th nationally. And you don't do a good job of closing the door in the fourth quarter at only scoring 3.9 points per game in the fourth. That's 123rd nationally. Michigan State overall, you do not score points very well. For Nebraska, not bad. 30.9 points scored per game. It is 42nd nationally. In the first and the fourth quarters, you're pretty steady. At first quarter scoring, it's 7 points per game. That is 48th nationally. And in the fourth quarter, you score on average 8.2 points. That is 32nd nationally. None of those stats are bad. None of them are great or stellar. But it might be enough against a very lackluster offense in Michigan State. Defensive scoring is where Michigan State makes their claim to fame, at least in overall and in the first quarter. At 19.7 points allowed per game, that is 16th nationally for Michigan State. First quarter, you do an excellent job of holding teams cold at 2.7 points per game in the first quarter. That is 9th overall. But in the fourth quarter, that is where you struggle, Michigan State, and that's where you've lost at least 2 of your games this year in the fourth. You've given up on average 8.5 points in the fourth. That is 104th nationally. Michigan State, you need to do a better job of closing the door in the fourth. For Nebraska, you're horrible at giving up points in all aspects of the game. You have given up on average 36.6 points per game. We go look back at this. You are giving up more points than you're scoring, Nebraska. That would be another reason why you are at 7 losses so far this year. You're being outscored on average by 6.6 points per game. That is 108th nationally, the 36.6 points given up per game. First quarter score, or giving up per game, is you're giving up 8.9 points in the first quarter. That's 109th nationally. In the fourth, you're giving up 8.6 points per game. That is 106th nationally. Regardless of where you slice it, Nebraska, you're giving up far too many points, and it is showing in your record. Self-imposed errors. Michigan State, you are committing 6 penalties per game. That is 58th nationally at 52 penalty yards per game. Cause for concern, not horrible, but those penalties do come back to haunt you, and they have haunted you in certain aspects of the games this year. And you have given up 17 turnovers. That is quite staggering at 90. That is 92nd nationally. Nebraska, you commit far too many self-imposed errors, and it has come back to haunt you quite often this year. Now, you can't say self-imposed errors were the cause of you losing to Michigan, but it could be the reason why you lost to Purdue and Wisconsin. You've got to do a better job of not committing penalties. You committed 8.4 penalties this year per game. That's 123rd nationally, Nebraska. 77 yards, or penalty yards, you're giving up per game, Nebraska. And you turn the ball over 19 times at 106th nationally. All of those reasons are, in my opinion, why you are saying it's 7 losses. Not completely, but this is a big reason. Not to mention, you give up too many points. Not to mention, you don't get enough turnovers on defense. Not to mention, again, defense in general. You're quite lousy, giving up far too many yards. Your offense is decent. In fact, your offense is quite good. But you keep shooting yourselves in the foot with penalties and turnovers and giving up too many yards on defense and giving up too many third down conversions on defense. Nebraska, you've got to wake up in this game. You're playing an inferior offense. You've got to take advantage of it. Now, neat little tidbits. Teams did play each other for the first time in 1914. And Nebraska did win that game in Lincoln 24-0. Nebraska has dominated this series at 8-2-0. I didn't really realize these teams hadn't played each other very often. Michigan State's all-time win-loss tie record we've looked at before. We'll look at it again. It's 700, 457, and 44. If you know anything about historically speaking, you'll know that Nebraska has been a juggernaut in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And it shows in their all-time win-loss tie record at 896, and 387, and 40. Michigan State has only beat Nebraska for the first time in 2013. Think about that stat. And Michigan State won that matchup 41-28. This is also the first time these two teams have played each other when neither team was ranked since 1920. And Nebraska beat the then Michigan Agricultural College Aggies, which is what they're called back that far back, 35-7. Keys to the game. What does Michigan State need to do to win this game? They need to attack Nebraska's mediocre defense with a balanced running and passing attack. You have to complete passes, which is something you haven't done much this year, Michigan State. Do something. You've got to give your quarterback some confidence. Short, intermediate passes. Something to catch Nebraska's defense napping and give your offense some success and some confidence. Nebraska has a decent offense. You have to force them to being a pass-first team by shutting down the run early. You have the best running defense in the nation. Use it. Shut down Nebraska's running attack and force them to be a passing team. Michigan State, you can't settle for 3 points inside the 20. Like I said, for Ohio State playing Maryland, you have to score 6 or force Nebraska into a long field if you face 4th down inside the 20. Win that field position battle. You can't turn the ball over Michigan State. For Nebraska, you'll win if you have to force turnovers to give your offense a consistent short field to work with. You have to start out with short and intermediate completions to force Michigan State into respecting the pass. Then you go to the ground attack. Or you can come out firing on all cylinders and go for a deep ball first play of the game. I would not go for a running play first play of the game if I'm Nebraska. You have to play smart on defense and force Michigan State into consistent 3-and-outs. This Michigan State team does not convert on 3rd down very often anyway. Your defense gives up too many of them. Something's got to give, so your defense needs to buckle down, hunker down, and stop Michigan State on 3rd down. And you have to convert on 3rd down and win time of possession battle. You have not done a good job of that this year so far in Nebraska. You got to play a clean game. You have to take care of the penalties. You cannot commit 7 and 8 penalties and expect to win this game. You have to play smart, clean, and disciplined. You can't turn the ball over, convert on 3rd down. Get that passing game going early so you can set up your run. But you can't run the football against this Michigan State team unless you take some chances through the air first. Catch them napping, they're over their heads. Who to pick? Logic, numbers, records, body of work, all points to Michigan State. But what does Nebraska have that Michigan State didn't have right now? Nebraska has some fire. They have some hunger. Michigan State, I think, took a couple of steps backwards last week against Ohio State. Ohio State showed just how bad Michigan State is on offense, and I think it did take some confidence away from them as a whole on that side of the football. Nebraska has a good offense, but what Nebraska lacks is a defense. So you've got, again, a good offense going up against a good defense. We saw what happened last week. I do believe it will repeat itself this week. I know a lot of you think I'm insane, but I am picking Nebraska 21-19 because I believe these kids want to give Scott Frost his first high-profile win. They came close against Ohio State. They came close against Northwestern. I think they're going to come close this game, and I think they're going to hold off Michigan State in the 4th quarter and win this game 21-19 in a very tough, hard-fought, classic Big Ten, knock them on their rear end type of game, and I'm going to look forward to it. If you think I'm insane, please let me know in the comments section down below. I might be, but I am picking Nebraska, and if I'm wrong, so sue me. I'm standing by this pick because I believe Nebraska can do it, and I believe they can win, which is important. But thank you for watching. Please like, share, subscribe. If you do like this video, share it with your friends. Let them know what we're doing here, and I do appreciate the views as always. Thank you for the likes. Please let me know in the comments how I'm doing. If you did not like this video or you do not like my content, please hit that thumbs down button and let me know in the comments why you did not like my video. Maybe you didn't like my pick. Maybe you're a Michigan State fan. Maybe you didn't like how I dogged your offense. Well, look at the stats and you'll agree with me. That's all I can tell you. But that's all the time I have left for this video. Enjoy the games this weekend. I think there are going to be some sneaky good ones. Just pay attention and keep it hooked here for what to expect in the pivotal Big Ten games of the weekend. Until next time, guys and gals.